Dan and say, do you have a question for me for my interview?
Oh, you don't want that question.
Okay, we're talking about Mojo and how, you know, it was made in this rehearsal space. And although you did the Mudcrutch record in there, which is probably where the idea originally came from, that it could be done.
Do you care about that plane?
Well, we're going to just kind of... Is that okay now? Is it far enough?
It's got some reality to it. You know, you have some good ambient sound. You know, it's like we are in the flight path of Burbank Airport.
That's right. Yeah, if you probably listen to this record with headphones, maybe you can hear something.
You can hear a little bit of it.
Yeah, the Tom Brousseau record. It was so windy when we made that. You could hear the wind. Because you have to turn the track up so loud for Tom.
I did some demos with my friend Stacy last year or 2 years ago at Agunas's, and they're great. And then this low bass part comes in. It's like a truck rumbling by.
Yeah, right. So, making this record live in the room, what happens? It's okay. I'm talking.
It's fine.
What happens differently when you guys are without headphones in a room together?
Well, to put it really simplistically, we play music. It's much more musical. It's much more ensemble playing. Headphones they're really restricting in what you get to hear. Everybody hears something different if you get your own mix. If not, then maybe the drummer needs to hear less of the drums so you don't... It's not as real. You know, when you sit around and listen to music, unless you're on a plane or, you know, I don't know why, you don't listen on headphones. Maybe people with iPods like to do that, but I'd rather listen to it coming through air. And there's a big difference when you're all hearing it coming through air than there is if you're hearing it coming through the electronics. We have speakers on the floor that some stuff will come through, but for the most part, I didn't need to have... I could hear the drums in the room, I could hear the bass pretty much in the room, I could hear everything pretty much in the room except Scott and Tom's guitars and vocals because they were so far away. So it's much less self-conscious. You know, it's a much less, it's much more played for each other, and it's more played for each other and less played for the recording machine.
Do you remember any specific moments where you particularly noticed the vibe going down?
Well, I noticed it, I've noticed it for years, how much better we are as a live band than we are as a studio band. We've made really good records, I think, but there's this sound that we make that I've never heard on records until the recent live record, and maybe some of the early records, where we were, of course, playing with headphones, and we'd overdub some stuff, but we were naive enough, maybe, to let ourselves shine through, or the technology didn't get in the way of letting ourselves shine through. And lately, with all of the ability to overdub this, that, and the other and build stuff up, I'm a really big fan of doing everything at once, and I am to a fault. You know, I'd rather just play it live. I'd rather never do anything that overdubs, and it's a shortcoming of mine because it's putting rules on things. But I do think, in general, especially with a band like this, Steve does this as a fill, and so I pull the rhythm back a little bit right here so that it'll work with Steve, and he hears that and responds to it, or Mike does, and it all goes in a row, or Tom sings something, and right at that moment, Scott, Ron, and I react to it in a certain way. And if you don't play it all at once, then you don't get that in the same time. It gets staggered, and it's just not, it's not as human of an interaction. It's a very beautiful group interaction. When you talk about going to a concert, the word concert means together. You know, you go see a group or an orchestra play in concert, they're playing in concert with each other, they're playing together. And I've always preferred it that way.
Is it a coincidence that the old days of making records, before Leo Fender invented multi-tracking, bands all played in the same room, and a lot of rhythm and blues and roots and blues music was made.
Was it
and now,
Leo or was it Les?
I mean Les Paul.
Yeah.
And now you guys have decided to make this live record in a room, and the music you choose to make is almost has its history and has its footprint in that style of music.
I think it's probably a coincidence. The thing about playing it all without headphones is that, to get back to that, is that we play more like ourselves, so we're less self-conscious. The thing about playing this more quote-unquote roots-oriented stuff, I think it's just what Tom's been listening to a lot. Probably. Well, we've always listened to a lot of that. I heard him say something about not feeling like doing the pop stuff. I think he doesn't feel like he's maybe in that place mentally. And, that's all right. Mama's a blues song, and that's a pop record, That's what Sam Phillips said the day that Elvis cut it, said that's a pop song. There's too many labels put on stuff. Is it roots? I don't know, like, you can tell what kind of music we like to listen to other than the Beatles, the Byrds on this record. Because a lot of our stuff you can hear the English influence on, and there's less of the English thing going on this. But when we sit around and we don't have anything to learn or rehearse and we're just messing around, this is the kind of music we play. This is the sound of the band that I know best. Everybody else sees a rock show or they hear a record. But what I hear in my head when I hear the Heartbreakers is more like this, because this is what we do. This is the sound we make when we just hang out in a room and play together.
Why did it take so long for that to get down on record?
I don't know. I think it's probably, Tom and Mike are really interesting producers and co-producers with everybody that we've made records with. They've co-produced it. And they are much more open to trying different things than I am. So the first couple of records did have some stuff that was experimental, built up with loops. I mean, Noah Shark and Max would drop acid before they pushed record, so we'd do whatever. And the stuff with Jimmy Iovine was pretty much live in the studio, and we might have to replace some things, but it was going for that live feel. But Dave Stewart was more experimental. Jeff Lynne certainly likes to build things up one instrument at a time, or maybe do one take with a bunch of guitar players playing together at once, but still build it up. There have been things we've done with drum machines, and I think they work their way through to where they're at the time, which is, it's a good thing. They're much
Mojo.
more willing to grow than I am. I'm just like, let's cut it live, and I'm really annoying that way, and I know they're just sick of me, but.
Now, I've asked everyone this super corny question, but the title of the record is Mojo, and what's your definition of that?
I don't have a definition for it. I thought it was mofo, but, I just think of it like that,
Ron said it was the real thing. Scott said it was like magic, the magic that you
Well, what it is it's like an old Southern, I think, voodoo thing. Probably comes from Africa, or maybe it's a French Creole derivation of a word, who knows. And I think it's got to do a lot with magic, but old roots, not tearing up, USA Today and look, a dove flies out of it, like this kind of magic. But it's also a very Southern word.
Is this record, are you proud of this record?
I love this record. I tend not to be proud. I try not to be proud because I don't think that, I really do. I know there are people who don't subscribe to this, and I know there are people, therefore, since it's what they believe is their experience, but I think it comes through rather than what I've done is I've hung in with the band, they've hung in with me and all the rest of us, and I practice to get better, and then I just show up. So I don't get proud of it, but I think it's a really good record. I think it's a really good record, and I think it really sounds like us, and I love this band. So if it sounds like us, then I'm happy, really happy with it.
That's the quote right there.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
All right.
I should change shirts.